Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the West Suffolk series, 103 parishes set in some of the most beautiful English countryside, and there's some good ones in this area. Shall we go have a look? Of course. Welcome back to West Suffolk again, everybody. Now you'll notice it's very dark here this morning. It's 7:25, and on any normal sort of spring or summer day it would be gorgeous bright sunlight by now, but of course in January it's a bit different, isn't it? However, the dark morning has actually helped me out in this village because this is a linear village. It was a very difficult route to plan, so basically I've used the darkness to walk from the end point to the beginning, and all I've got to do is walk back. Welcome to the village and the parish of Kentford. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Kentford, ford on the River Kennett. Day 2 in West Suffolk was thankfully a whole lot better weather-wise than it had been just a few hours earlier. The dark morning of January the 3rd brought me to Kentford, a small village located just to the east of Newmarket on the banks of the River Kennett. It's primarily centred around the B1506, which links it to the A14, a road that bypasses Kentford to the north. Although it ended up being pretty easy in the end, this was a very difficult route to plan. It's hard to know exactly where the parish boundaries lie in this area. Some of Kentford is technically Moulton, while some other parts don't even belong to Suffolk. One such landmark that's actually in Cambridgeshire is the Bell Inn, one of the 2 pubs on this route. Landmarks wise, the village has a few. As well as the pubs, there's a church, a seed factory, and the site of a former packhorse bridge over the river. Also, being so close to Newmarket, Kentford has had, and still continues to have, several connections to horse racing. The most notable comes in the form of a grand house once lived in by one of the most glamorous British women around in the late 1800s, one with a massive connection to the royal family. Her name is even honoured in a local street name. I wonder who it might have been. Let's go and find out. We start in the northeastern corner of civilization on St Mary's Road. You probably can't tell thanks to the low light, but we're in the vicinity here of a small playground, which in turn sits amongst a modest-sized patch of new build housing. With the exception of the new estate we saw back in Exning, so far we haven't yet seen much in the way of new developments in this part of Suffolk. Here in Kentford though, brand new houses have been constructed at a rate of knots, so much so that these days it's hard to define the centre of population here. This new area is known to the locals as Kentford Lodge. It's named after a house which stands to the southeast of these new builds. Kentford Lodge was, for much of its time, the home of the Lord family. They were closely involved with matters on the parish council from its very first meeting in 1894 until 1973. That's when Colonel Lord stepped down as chairman, not wishing to seek re-election. As you leave the estate along Saxon Hall Road, you pass an entrance to the house itself. Kentford Lodge can just about be seen here. We've reached Herringswell Road, but that is the A14 Newmarket bypass. We're stood on a bridge here that overlooks it. Before this was built, traffic used the old turnpike road which we know today as Bury Road, the B1506. Tolls were once collected in Kentford. Herringswell Road otherwise seems quite mundane, but it once featured some airy houses in the 1940s. They were replaced in 1993 with an award-winning housing scheme on part of their site, with a further 11 dwellings provided by a housing association on the remainder. The walk will take us down Bury Road towards Newmarket in a moment. This is looking the other way towards the A14 junction. Now here's one for the keen gardeners amongst you. On Gaisley Road nearby is a seed factory. This is Mr Fothergill's, one of the most successful seed companies in the UK and one of the largest seed houses in Europe. They've been in business since 1978. Just beyond the factory you can see the edge of a big building. That's part of Regal Lodge. Stick around until the end of this one because there's a story behind that place. Returning to the crossroads, we come to a bus stop served by the numbers 311 and the X16. Right next to the shelter is a parish notice board, so let's get that job out of the way too. 98 to go. Now let's talk pubs, because our next landmark is the Kentford, a 450-year-old building which used to be known as the Cock. The bus stop we've just passed is still named the Cock in its honour. In 1871, when it was known as the Old Cock, it was purchased by Green King for £370. 3 generations of the Philby family were its licensees until 1983. The thatched property opposite the pub is called Regal Cottage. Like the pub, it's also Grade 2 listed and was likely created from several buildings. Next door is the equally gorgeous timber-framed St Helier, a name which has a link to the Channel Islands. It's not the only thing in Kentford that does. This is Jersey Meadow. St Helier, of course, is the capital of Jersey. Stick with me, the connection will become clear soon. The White House afterwards is the former Fox and Ball public house. It also served as the village post office for a time too. Now we're off across the road towards a raised footpath which will give us access to the church. It also has the added bonus of giving us a great view of the next few properties. I have little to no information about any of these, but in front of us here is Kentford Paddocks. This is likely a reference in some small capacity to horse racing, you'd have thought. The 3-storey building is Hill House, an apt name because we're about to start walking downhill now. Not before we've had a look at St Mary's Church though, which occupies Kentford's highest point. St Mary's is a Grade 1 listed building. It's made of stone and is constructed in the decorated style. It comprises a nave, chancel, south porch and a small western tower that once held 3 bells. Noteworthy features include some well-preserved 18th century box pews, considered to be among the finest examples anywhere in Suffolk. It seems this church is currently campaigning for funds. £20,000 has been raised so far. That's not bad. It wasn't open, so ignore this board by the way. It's an active church offering regular services and it's a hub for community events. Now we've come down the hill and we're heading for the river. On the right hand side there's another run of new build houses. According to my sources there was a shop somewhere along this stretch at one time. Putting 2 and 2 together I'd surmise it may have been here. The cul-de-sac opposite is Medlar Garden. That's a reference to Medlar's horse stud which is now gone. In its place is another new estate consisting of some 62 new houses. It's mad to think with all this new development, Kentford only had 12 properties in 1674. Now we're approaching the crossing point of the River Kennett. It's a windy river that runs alongside the road for a short way after turning sharply. Centuries ago, the Kennett was crossed by a packhorse bridge, one of only 2 of its kind in Suffolk. Only the wall leading to the bridge remains, with the remaining parts of the bridge vanishing by the 1970s. Luckily though, there is a picture of it at the point where it once spanned the water. The modern bridge is a bit less exciting, but nonetheless, it will take us into Kentford's western end. Now at this point the parish boundary is a bit weird. In your shot now is an old forge and shortly so too will be the Bell Inn. Neither are in Kentford or indeed Suffolk. They belong to Cambridgeshire and the parish of Kennett. The Bell Inn hit the news recently after a Mercedes forced it to close by ramming into one of its walls, leaving its brand new garden room severely damaged. It has now reopened though. Let's head down Moulton Road next as we cross the border back into Suffolk again towards our final handful of landmarks. This building is the well-stocked country store Thurlow Nunn Standen, which stands on the site of a World War II army depot. In business for 60 years, they're a well-known name in the racing industry, further adding to Kentford's connections to Newmarket Racecourse. Our last landmark is the local shop and post office on Moulton Avenue, the only retail facility in Kentford barring the pubs. Now, theoretically, that's Kentford covered, but we will be seeing some more of this one in a future episode, and here I am to explain why. So the shop and the post office is our end point. Now have a look on the other side of the road here. You can see a whole swathe of buildings. All of that belongs to Kentford as well, but it's not really the easiest area to walk around because it's all cul-de-sacs and dead ends and things like that. That didn't used to be part of Kentford. It used to be part of Moulton or Moulton. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that one yet, but that is a future episode that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. And at the end of that episode, I'm going to drive along this road and try and show you this using the car as best I can. But as far as the walk goes, that's been Kentford, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Just before we go, here's some more about Regal Lodge. Originally a farmhouse built in 1863, its most famous owner was Emily Charlotte Lady de Bath, better known as Lily Langtry, or by her nickname the Jersey Lily, having been born in the Channel Islands in 1853. Langtry was an actress, socialite and producer, but was known best as the mistress of Edward VII when he was Prince of Wales. Langtry heavily modified and expanded Regal Lodge into a grand residence. It was the setting for many of her lavish weekend parties, and it featured impressive rooms designed for large social gatherings, including a theatre-like drawing room and servant quarters that have remained untouched since the Edwardian era. Regal Lodge also played a role in Langtry's passion for horse racing. Indeed, there is a horse race held every year at Goodwood called the Lily Langtry Stakes. Langtry died in 1929 in Monaco. After World War I, Regal Lodge operated as the Langtry Hotel for a number of years. Eventually, it was sold. So off we go then to the next one via the B1506, which joins the A14 at junction 39, or Kentford Interchange as it's known. This passes through Phoenix Bike Park, which belongs to Gaisley, but that's not the next episode. I told you, the boundaries are a bit weird out here. Join me next week to see where this little drive ends up. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.